Everyone, welcome back to Cutting Through the Noise, Destination Marketing Edition, Episode 3. Sean, how's your day?
It's going well. We were just talking about a little fast food breakfast, so taking some polls over there.
It's a competitive world out there, the fast food
is.
breakfast. Used to be a couple heavy hitters, and that was it.
Everybody's got a thing now.
No longer. You have to compete for the hash browns. Sean, today we are talking the activation stage. So last time we talked a lot about acquisition, driving people to your site, new visitors, getting them to your site. That can be a really tough step. Activation, a step that a lot of people forget about. Once you've worked so hard to get your visitors to your site, what happens next? How do you take those visitors that you've spent a lot of time, money, and resources getting to your URL to take an action, to raise their hand?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you spend all this time researching this car, you get this great hot rod, and then you leave it parked in the garage. Like, you gotta do something with what you've sort of acquired.
Yeah.
And I think today we kind of want to talk about sort of what activation looks like, what that actually means, because it's going to mean something different on every website for every organization in terms of, what that conversion means. So it's what it is, and then, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of tracking it, and then sort of what you do to sort of make sure that what you've acquired and activated sticks around.
Sure. Awesome.
So from where you sit, what would you kind of consider an activation conversion? What's an example of somebody being activated?
Yeah, great question. In the lens of destination marketing, I think there's a lot of different conversions that one could measure. Of course, the final conversion is somebody visiting your destination, being a tourist at your location. When we talk activation stage as digital marketers, what we're really talking about are micro conversions. So things like someone filling out a form to request more info. Things like somebody calling the economic development department to find out what are some tax benefits for relocating a business to your location. Things like maybe requesting a packet. I want to see sort of a business packet or a tourism packet about your destination. As we think about, Sean, moving from acquisition to activation, a lot of times we start with people, and one of the things we'll measure is, okay, well, from the acquisition standpoint, where are people coming from? We talked about that last week. But one of the things that a lot of folks that we talk with don't know as we start to remove layers of uncertainty is how their existing website is performing. So when we ask, what percentage of your website visitors are taking the action that you want them to, that's when we get some blank stares back at us. And if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I couldn't answer those questions, like what percentage are clicking on my phone number, or what percentage are watching that $50,000 video we produced last year, and you don't know the answers to those things, that's okay. But just understand that when we talk activation, those are the types of things we're measuring.
And when you're measuring those, what are some ways that people should be doing that, thinking about it as they're either setting up conversion tracking on their existing website, if they're looking at building landing pages? What are some things, just some kind of quick things that everybody should be keeping in mind?
Yeah, I think a good place to start is before you think about adding tools like Google Tag Manager or setting up events on specific call to action buttons. A quick audit of your existing site, in each page of that site, and if you have 3,000 pages, maybe visit the top 10 most visited pages on your site and ask yourself and ask your team, what is the goal of this specific page? So you could do this right now. You could open up your destination marketing website or your economic development website on a mobile device or on your desktop. And on the home page, ask yourself, if you could have one and only one action on this page, what would that action be? And then the next step is to ask yourself, well, how many other actions exist on this site that we care less about? And maybe there's some that you have to have. You want someone to call, and you want to give them the option to request information through a form. But that would be step one, is answering the question, what's the goal of this site? If you have a site that talks about 10 things to do, do you want them to just read the page? You want them to spend a long time on that page? Then maybe that's the goal you want them to take, and you can measure that. Step 2 is then figuring out, well, how are you going to track that? And that's a lot of times where people sort of stop, is they say, okay, we've identified the goal and we think we've made some adjustments for it, but you're not really done. So because you need to know, is that working? And this is where understanding some of the tools that exist out there that we use, Shawn, here at Pintler Group, things like landing page optimization and landing page software. We use Instapages to help create many different variations of sites. Can you think of an example in a tourism setting that one would use landing pages for? Thinking specifically for like personas, different personas.
Yeah, I think personas from a geographical standpoint. I mean, a couple weeks ago we talked about, if you're trying to get somebody to go camping, in somewhere in Montana, what you're going to show people out of state is different than what you're going to show people in state.
Yeah.
And so I think, in state, for example, Montana, you're trying to show why that camping destination is different from the other 12.
Right.
Whereas people out of state, you want to send them to a landing page where they're just being sold on Montana in general.
Yeah.
And so that's where you kind of optimize, and then, you have your forms, your conversions there. But, I think that's an example of where you'd want different sort of persona-based landing pages.
Yeah, and I think somewhere in between steps 1 and 2, where you're asking yourself, what's the goal of this page? You do want to understand who exactly your personas are. I saw a stat as I was sort of preparing for this podcast from businessgrow.com that said that for most businesses, and I think tourism would definitely fall under this category, 3 to 4 personas account for about 90% of business. And I think that's, as you think about your own destination, sure, can anybody anywhere for the end of time visit your destination? Of course. If you're thinking about we have limited resources here to deploy, we can't build 1,500 landing pages for all the different types of personas that we think we have. Start with 3 or 4. It's okay. You don't need 50 landing pages.
I mean, you can't be everything to everyone. So you just kind of need to be as much as you can to, a few certain people. And there's going to be overlap. And I think that's true. I mean, when we're kind of tossing out examples here, over the course of this season, we kind of are always kind of going back to the same sorts of ones. It's like family vacation, exotic, weekend warrior type camping, climbing, those sorts of things. So
yeah,
I think we, kind of go back to the same one. So I can see how that's probably pretty accurate.
Yep. So step 2, figure out how to measure or how to track those things. And we can help with that. There's plenty of documentation out there that helps figure out, okay, how do I track for every 100 visitors that comes to my site, how many of them play this video or click on this button? And then the third and most important step is to optimize, to make sure that you're making the adjustments. If your goal is form completions and you want people to submit, hey, we want a packet to visit Austin.com and we want information about Austin. And maybe it's not a packet, but it's a PDF or it's some gated content. They're subscribing to a white paper about all the cool things to do in Austin. Maybe audit those form fields. And if it's 7 form fields and you're asking for address, but you're sending them a PDF, like, do you really need that address, and is that impacting your conversion rates? If you are wanting people to play a video that you spent a lot of money producing, it's high production, and it's really great, but the video, embed code, they have to sort of click on a play button underneath the video to play the video. There's some simple things that folks can do that, since you look at the site every day, you don't really feel, you just know, of course I have to click the play button under the video instead of just embedding the video. Like, we've seen things before, Shawn, when we've worked with clients that first shock us, and then 2, we kind of high five. We're like, this is going to be such a quick win for this client. So easy. Right. So it doesn't always have to be, let's spend months sort of testing the color of this call to action button.
I think, to say, use the form example again. So if you're getting 0 submissions, that's obviously a trigger that you need to do something to optimize, to change up. But what if you're getting 5 a month? How do you assign value to the conversion? As in, what's the trigger to say, okay, something's not right, so let's dive in deeper, as opposed to, wow, this is working, so let's just not, try to fix what's not broken. I mean, how do you kind of come up with those benchmarks and sort of assign even a monetary value to sort of a conversion when you're spending money to get people there?
That's a great question. A lot of that lies and maybe this is step 4, which is sort of tracking those leads. And this might be step 3-A, but understanding how much is a lead worth to you. If you're an e-commerce company and you sell $20 hats, and you're spending $2,000 a month on ads, and you're selling 5 hats from your Facebook ads, that's something that you need to reevaluate. Or maybe not. Or maybe you ask the question of the customers that purchased a hat, how many of them are repeat customers for life? 5 form completions. And maybe Shawn, you can talk about this, but after somebody fills out a form, what are some things that businesses can do to help nurture that lead?
Yeah, I think, nurturing is sort of the right word. I mean, anybody can fill out a form. You could put a form on your website. People are going to fill it out, but, you can't just then ignore it, and, a lot of times, especially when we're thinking about destination marketing, we're thinking about something that's not going to be done in one session in a lot of cases, and it's not something like, oh, somebody submits a form, oh, I'll give them a call in a day or two. It kind of has to be, in sort of our culture and the way people exist, there's an immediacy to everything.
Yeah, they're leaning into this
and there's an immediate reaction to every action. So something we really work on, with all our clients is just a really strong email automation, in the sense that you fill out a form and you're immediately getting kicked back an email. Some people, it's, an offer. E-commerce client, you fill out a form, you get a coupon. Okay, great, I'm going to go buy something. A lot of times, especially when we think about long tail conversions, it's, educational. So, thanks for submitting, we'll be in touch. In the interim, here's a video about, the campsite that we're trying to pitch you.
Yeah.
And, the nice thing about automation, you don't have to touch it. People understand that it's not real. It just is what it is. But you're not trying to sell them on anything in terms of the first one. You're really kind of giving them education.
And they can come back to it.
Right. And then from there, the nice thing about, email clients like MailChimp is get really sophisticated in your automations in terms of behavioral based. So somebody signs up for a form, you send them an email, they don't open it, maybe it gets resent. Or maybe somebody clicks and watches a video, well, then that person I'm going to send an additional white paper to or a PDF.
Right.
And that can also, analyzing that can also help you figure out how you want to be in touch with them, just from a follow-up standpoint when it is time for human-to-human contact.
Yeah, segmenting in 2020 is certainly, if you're not doing it, it's sort of the table stakes. It used to be advanced marketing tactics, and now if you're not segmenting and instead just sending sort of bulk email, you're missing out on opportunities for real engagement. There's a stat that I found from leadpages.net. 81% of sales happen after 7 or more contacts, which wasn't surprising to me. What was surprising to me was the next stat that they reported, which was 85% of most marketing and sales teams typically stop after 2 contacts. So 81% of sales happen after 7 contacts, and most of the time people are stopping after 2, which is exactly your point there, Shawn, about continuing the conversation, nurturing the lead, figuring out when is it appropriate to reach out versus this, they just need a nice drip email campaign and they'll raise their hand when they're ready.
Yeah, because, not every form is going to be just a straight contact us and where you immediately need to call somebody back,
Right.
And I think those forms are the ones that aren't going to convert anyway because nobody wants to actually talk to a real person at first. So when you're offering people something, it's not just send them the PDF, it's then check in with them, see what they thought about it, show them a video, give them, I always like the email automations where it's just like some fun facts about the destination Panama, knowing that they're going to take that step and, depending on your business, there may be a phone contact, but I think just sort of giving people the information and setting yourself apart from others is kind of what is really going to help you convert that lead.
Yep. The next kind of piece of activation, it just brings to mind a book, The Sales Acceleration Formula by Matt Roberge. He talks about the strategy at HubSpot that they use with forms. And if somebody completes a form and it meets some certain criteria, for example, okay, they work at a company with 50 or more employees and their title is, C-suite, then that sort of gets raised to the top of the food chain at the organization at HubSpot, and they get a phone call from like a director of sales versus somebody that's just getting started and just wants some info, and there's some questions that sort of filter these leads out in a real way. And that's something that you can use as well in destination marketing. Like, where are you in your trip planning process? That might be a question to help figure out somebody that wants to book this week versus somebody that is in the research phase. And those are important distinctions.
Yeah, I mean, even just asking when you're looking to travel can vary. If it's in the next year or if it's in the next 2 months, that's another way to just kind of really kind of segment it out. We have a client that sells a product, and they sell it in large quantities and custom materials, and they also just sell it kind of a la carte, sort of what they have. And part of that is having to order over the phone, part of it's having to order online, and so when leads come in for them, they're kind of qualified in terms of these are the big fish, these are the people that need to be talked to on the phone, like you said, but then everybody else gets sort of a different type of communication. It's not like they're just set aside and you're not important to us. They just are handled in an automated way that kind of gets them through the buying process.
For sure. So a theme, Shawn, that both of us kind of keep hitting on is segmenting and also personalization.
Right. I mean, you're not going to be able to respond to everything personally.
Right.
If you can, then you probably need to optimize because you're not getting enough leads.
Right.
So, getting as personal in an automated way is pretty important.
Yeah, giving people different entry points. Don't only make your site geared toward people that are ready to book in the next 2 months. Okay, if someone's thinking about, if someone just started dating and they're like, yeah, I might marry this person and they want to plan a wedding, give that person some options too.
Everybody's got to have options.
They might be forward thinkers. Who knows? Hopefully the feeling's mutual between that couple. Shawn, this is the activation episode. Anything we missed?
Well, just one other thing. So we talked a lot about leads and people filling out forms, and those being sort of the people you're acquiring. What about you've acquired somebody and the conversion was making a purchase?
Yeah.
What do you do with that type of person? How do you activate them going forward?
Well, you could be kind of previewing our next week, which is retention.
And that was the lead-in, just to
say,
good. What, we're going to talk about that next week.
We got a little bit of retention piece next week. Yeah. So once they've taken action, your job as a marketer has only just begun when it comes to especially marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, destination marketing.
Exactly.
Repeat visitors, word of mouth, lots to be talked about there.
All right, so that's a tease. So tune in next week when we talk about retention.
That's it. Hope you enjoy the episode.